Welcome to the Be My Own Boss podcast. My name is Mike Hruby. This is episode 45, and we have big news for you today, which if you listen carefully and act on and think about, you can benefit from. But there's a fight ahead because independent contractors and self-employers all across the country have been attacked. And this attack created the ugliest labor law in the entire country in federal, state, or municipal law. It is terrible, and it happened, and don't dismiss this because it's New Jersey, or maybe it won't affect you. It will, and that's the intent. And what I'd like to do today is give you a little bit of background and mostly tell you how this attack has come about so you can intelligently listen and participate in conversations in the weeks coming up. This is a big, big deal. Now, what has happened is that New Jersey has a weaponized ABC law into an attack on self-employment. Now, for 87 years, some variation of the ABC test, and it changes regularly, has governed the subjective judgment, the subjective decision of who is actually an independent contractor and who is actually an employee. We have solutions for this, so we're completely prepared for this attack because it's actually going to help us show the problem that we have with federal law and now with state law. So this attack is going to end all independent contracting work in New Jersey for about 1.7 million New Jerseyans. They will not have a way to get around it because the penalty is going to be applied to their buyers. Hello, traveler. Good to see you with us. What happens is that they took the New Jersey labor regulators, took the ABC test, laid it out, and they said, what can we do to exclude independent contracting in New Jersey as effectively as possible and not look like we're outlawing it? And what they did, they took it apart and made changes to the first two prongs, the A prong and the B prong. They left the C prong alone. But what they did to the A and the B prong is going to be understood by every buyer. Even if the independent contractors don't understand it, the buyers will, and they will see that they are at tremendous risk. So let's go. I want you to know this because the regulation itself is 33 pages long. I haven't read it yet. I've been reading snippets of it. The entire thing is designed to be unreadable. That's part of the job of being a labor regulator in the 2020s in America, is that you just can't read this law without falling asleep, without a red pen, without a highlighter, without taking notes, and even then you have to distill it all and then have your head swell up like a wet log and think through what you have just read and put it all in context. So the A prong, the job of the A prong normally would be to say that if the client has direction and control responsibility for how the work is done, that is now expanded to include any effort by the buyer to control compliance. To impose compliance. Now, it can be compliance with even criminal law. You can't steal. You can't run people over with your car. You can't do bad things. Any health requirement you impose on any safety requirement, any like environmental requirement. If you're subcontracting out some sort of service, you can't require the New Jersey law. New Jersey law is now going to say that any effort to make you comply is a form of direction and control and makes you an employee. And for the buyer, it says that person is now your employer, now your employee, and you have to treat him as such, or you'll be subject to treble damages. And treble damages are also a part of this, and that makes it furiously expensive, especially if you have more than one independent contractor or independent contracting for a while. All of that is trebled. Everything you'd pay for salary, for benefits, for compensation of any sort, bonus, vacation time, sick time, family leave, every one of those benefits you'd normally apply to your staff, you'd have to apply to these contractors, and then the whole thing is compounded with interest and trebled. Guys won't touch it. I wouldn't touch it. I have good friends who do work that I could buy in New Jersey, and I wouldn't employ them under these circumstances. I wouldn't engage with them. I wouldn't even talk to them for about a job because it could be construed. Okay, so this trying to comply with this and with this law, it guarantees absolute chaos and loss of control of the business. You can't do business without asking the people that you work with under any circumstances to comply with the law. What if this were applied to an employee? You'd say, look, you can't beat people up at work. It's violent. And they said, no, you can't control what they're doing. It just makes no sense at all. Okay, so the second prong. Then they went to the second prong, and that normally says anywhere you can't have an independent contractor working on your site. Can't have them working with regular employees. They can't actually be in your building doing their work. They can't be anywhere near your location of your business. So it was really clear what was intended is if you go to work as a consultant for Pizza Hut, you can't do any work on a Pizza Hut establishment. It all depends on the legal definition of what land they own, what buildings they own. So that was fairly simple. They said, aha, we were going to tackle this one. We're going to say that if anywhere an independent contractor does this work, it's one of the buyer's business sites. So if you're driving, this means that the back seat of your car now becomes a work site for whoever your client is, however they're going to define it. It means that if you're delivering food, the place you pick it up, the grocery store, the place you drop it off, where you're working, is part of your site. If you're a retailer of carpet, for instance, and you have independent contractors install it, which is how you do that business, because you cannot supervise and control these guys. You have to say, Harvey, do this, take your team and put in this carpet. You can get it, pick it up in back, take it there, put in a number 2 mat, and clean it up for them real nice, and we're going to pay you the regular rate we pay you. No, if you're going to put in a carpet in someone's bedroom, that bedroom is now construed by New Jersey regulatory law to be one of the places of business of the client. This is insane. No one is going to take on this risk, because it guarantees that anyone doing independent contracting is going to be reclassified as an employee, and that means the buyer is going to be subject to treble damages. So even public offices for the real estate profession, if you're doing title examination and you go to the title record, what a clerk's office in the county seat, and you start looking it up, that becomes a place of business of your buyer, which is absolutely nuts. Your buyer's not your employer, and that's not where they work. And yet, that's what the law says. So this is every single company who uses ICs will be approached by their lawyers and said, you better be careful, because if this law comes down, everything you do is going to be, with an independent contractor, is going to wind up being categorized as employment and be subject to treble damages as they deem fit. So it's going to be non-selective. Every single work instance of independent contracting, they're going to go after. It just totally out of control. So any place the work is done is going to be considered justification for categorizing people as independent contractors. If you're living in New Jersey and you see this, let me wish you the best. Okay, the third prong, they've made no change. The third prong is usually about do they have an established business of the same nature as the work you're doing? Bad regulation to begin with, but we'll leave it alone. They're leaving it alone. They're sure by the time they got to prong C that they were able to eliminate all independent contracting with the first two. So the ABC test itself has been weaponized to get rid of independent contracting. So why does this matter? Let's wrap this up with a discussion of why this matters to other people living in, for instance, Colorado or Maine or Florida or Texas or Oregon or Alabama. Why does it matter? This is part of what New Jobs America and Be My Own Boss call the blue state rollout of anti-independent contractor rules. This is a sophisticated, stepwise effort to penalize the buyers of independent contracting to an extreme degree and in innovative, novel ways in each state. They're doing it state by state to camouflage it and confuse everybody and not hope that people like me don't see the pattern and call it out. So we're seeing the pattern and calling it out with this broadcast and with many others. They want to get all of these ideas, they want to get the worst ideas into state law somewhere. And then the labor and left are going to push the biggest companies to complain about the conflicting and unintelligible rules that they have to deal with across all these states, and 10 or 12 blue states is all they need because they're the big ones. They're going to get them to demand national legislation that's uniform. This is how they do it. They've done it in other instances, in other laws, but you get the big guys who look at the platforms. They own the National Democrats own Verizon effectively. They own Facebook. They own Twitter. They can demand anything they want, and the companies will knuckle under. It's headline stuff every day. They're going to use it here against independent contractors. The big companies are going to squeal. Their employees give a lot of money to candidates. Congress gives a lot of money to NGOs. We've seen all of that happening the last 3 months, how this works. And then somebody has to then come up with a law, which I am sure they're already drafting piece by piece. And it's the solution of a uniform national law will consist of all the worst, grubbiest, and most effective barriers to independent contracting that the state legislatures have devised. And those are going to be pushed as a national solution. You're going to hear the media say it. Oh, this will be great. It'll help people protect themselves. And that will be effectively the end of independent contracting if that becomes national. So don't think that New Jersey is the end of it. New Jersey is just one state. They did this first in California with AB 5. Then they went to Rhode Island. And in Rhode Island, they made buying independent contracting a felony. But you don't hear about it because it's Rhode Island. It's a long way from anywhere. It's a little state. Who cares? I have no idea what people in Rhode Island are doing about independent contracting. But if I were you, I wouldn't use their services. I wouldn't be there. This is terrible. It's gonna what do they say? Californicate the independent contracting. It's rough. This is first class rough and tumble. And so, what this reveals in the end, this law reveals that there's a pattern here. It's all about roughing up in independent contractors in the states, reducing the number of people complaining, so it reduces the volume, reduces the clout by dividing it up into states. And they're trying to find the independent contractors' weak point. Well, you guys and me, we're all busy with work, so we can't actually run around and lobby a lot, but we can put the fear of the Lord into the legislature. So the New Jersey independent contractors who are listening should immediately start raising a ruckus with your state legislature and complain and say, we want this whole thing taken out. We need an objective test, not these subjective tests we've had for 87 years. We need an objective test of what is an independent contractor. And as you all know, the subjective test is that you wish to be an independent contractor. So with that, I will take any questions that show up in the chat. If you have comments afterwards, please write them down. I look at them every day and be happy to answer them. This is going to be a big deal. It's going to cause a lot of commotion. There's going to be a lot of news, and I hope you can get with it. I am not putting a link to the legislation because I wouldn't advise you to read it. Read the summaries. We're going to talk more about it in detail. We're going to give you excerpts, but it's 33 pages, 8,206 words of gobbledygook and doublespeak. So, with that, seeing no questions immediately, I'm going to say thanks for joining Be My Own Boss podcast. This has been episode 45. Like this broadcast, follow us on the channel, and sign up for the alerts so that we can catch you on the next episode and the ones thereafter. Thank you so much for listening.